Hello, everybody. So we are here, and as you see on the screen, we are doing Genesis chapter 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years. So remind you, in chapter 40, we have Joseph. He's in the jail area. He is with the cupbearer and the baker. They both have a dream. He gives the interpretation. One dream is good, one dream is bad. Okay? And the cupbearer gets put back into place of having his job again and being right where he was. But the baker gets killed and taken out. Okay. So this is 2 years later. And Pharaoh had a dream. Right? So he has a dream. And behold, he stood by the Nile, and suddenly out of the Nile, so this is in his dream, mind you, suddenly out of the Nile, so listen to the details, okay? Out of the Nile, there came up 7 cows. So number 7, that's a synonymous thing, right? So I want you to follow. 7, right? Cows. Okay, 7 cows. So that's first thing. Second thing, let's look at the description given to the cows. Fine looking and fat of flesh. So healthy, fat, very good looking, right? And they fed among the reeds, so they were able to eat. There's reference to the context. And then behold, 7 cows other came up after them out of the Nile. So after, hear that word again, after. Ill, favored, and thin, right? So not healthy, okay, of flesh, and stood by the other cows. So the 7 cows that were not healthy stood by the 7 cows that were, referencing that these things are close together on the bank of the Nile, and ate up the cows ill, favored, and thin of the flesh of the 7 cows, fine looking and fat. So here's the next reference. Okay, this is for anybody that wants to learn dream interpretation. Right? You have cows, good cows, bad cows, healthy cows, sick cows. The sick cows end up eating the healthy cows. Now that is reference very important right there. Okay, so whatever the ill cow is, it is eating up the healthy cow. It's devouring it, destroying it. Okay, and then Pharaoh woke up and he slept, so he went back to bed, and he dreamed a second time, and suddenly 7 heads of grain came up on a stalk, one fat and good, right? And behold, 7 heads thin and blighted by the east wind sprang up after them. So again, after, okay? And the bad ones, again, devours the heads of the good ones, okay? And full. So woke Pharaoh, indeed, it was a dream. So he realizes, hey, it's a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that was troubled his spirit. That would be the Pharaoh's spirit. In his heart, in his mind. And he sent and he called for, who did he call for? All the magicians. So he tries to solve this issue by human solution. Okay? How many of us can say we do that? We try to solve a situation with our own strength, with our own might, with our own ability. Okay? And all its wise men, and told Pharaoh them his dream. So Pharaoh's like, okay, here's my dream. But what happened? But there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Nobody could interpret dreams. Okay? And spoke the chief cupbearer, right? This is the same guy that was in the jail cell with Joseph, to the Pharaoh, saying, my faults, I remember this day. Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, both me and the chief baker. So he's basically explaining to Pharaoh, hey, I remember this day. I forgot about it, but now I remember it because of this situation. And we each had a dream one night, and he and I, each of us, interpretation according to the dreams. that we had. And there was there with us a young man, Hebrew servant of the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted for us our dreams, to each man according to his own dream. He interpreted, and it came to pass just as he said to us. So it came to pass, me he restored to my office, and him he hanged and sent. Right? So now we have that, right? So we have the cupbearer remembering, oh my goodness, I remember. My Pharaoh is having dreams. He wants interpretation. Oh, that reminds me. There's a guy who was in jail with me. He was able to interpret our dreams, and what he said actually happened. So let me tell my Pharaoh about that. Right? So what does the Pharaoh do? The Pharaoh calls for Joseph, requests. That's like, hey, go get Joseph, bring him to me. Right? And they brought him quickly, saying, out of the dungeon. He shaved, right? They shaved him, right? Because he was probably very, very scraggly, very nasty looking after being in jail for that long. And changed his clothes as well. And came to the Pharaoh. And said, Pharaoh to Joseph, a dream I have dreamed, and to interpret there is nobody. Nobody can interpret it. But I have heard of you, it said that you can understand a dream to interpret it. So answered Joseph, Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me, God will give an answer. In other words, I'm not the one that solves the riddle. I'm not the one that is interpreting this. I just relay the message. God is the one giving the answer. Right? And God will answer of peace, Pharaoh. And said Pharaoh to Joseph, in my dream, here's what occurred. Now, we can kind of scroll down through this because we already know what was said above, right? There's cows, 7 good cows, 7 bad cows, right? And they come up and they eat them. And then I see cows, right, favored. And I've seen such these things in all the land of Egypt for ugliness, right? And ate up the cows, the got ugly, 7 cows first, fat, and they devoured, right? Among them there was no one that would have known that they had devoured among them, ugly, for they were. Just as in the beginning, then I woke and I had another dream. So he's explaining to him his dreams. Because that's how it's revealed. You hear the dream, hear the details, and then you interpret the details based on the context of each tiny little detail in the dream. Right? Bad emotions signify bad things happening. So let me put it this way. Bad events such as the unhealthy cows eating the good cows. The unhealthy cows represent, as we know, 7 years, and they're eating the 7 years of plenty. Okay, so they're destroying the 7 years of plenty. Okay, they're eating, devouring. Right, that's not a good thing. Right, they're ill. The description of it is nasty, disgusting. That signifies a famine. Right. Now, the famine part, how he connects is he's looking at the life of what's going on around him, right? But it's directly from God because at that time, everything was good. There was no sign of famine. There was no sign of any of that stuff. So you have to get details, and then you have to plug into the situation that the person is going through at the moment. Okay? Now, I've had experiences where I've been given these visions of things, and I've been able, through the Holy Spirit, to be able to interpret things for people of their dreams. And it will come to pass, and we will see what the results of that thing that I interpreted for them would be. Okay? Now, hear that again. Okay? Ill cows, not a good thing. The ill cows eating the good cows, not a good thing. So negative, negative, right? So we have a good negative context, right? Now, the good cows represent something good. Bad cows represent something bad. The bad will try to devour the good. So you get how it's connected, right? And then he says another one, right? And he goes, there's this was it stocks, right? Now that gives reference right there to Joseph, right? Food, because what is stocks? Food, right? And they spring up, and then the good ones, the bad ones devour the good ones. He said, so I told this to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. I want an explanation. And said Joseph to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh, one, are what is God about to do. Right? So the dreams he's having is a warning to Pharaoh about what God is about to do. He has shown Pharaoh 7 cows, the good 7 years are, and 7 heads, good 7 years are. So both this good 7 heads of grain and the good cows are the same thing. 7 years, right, are the dreams. One are. And 7 thin cows, ugly, and which came up after them, 7 years are, and 7 empty heads, blighted. These winds are 7 years of famine, because the description of these two things are negative, right? Famine, suffering. So he's connecting everything together. That is the thing which I have spoken to Pharaoh, what God is about to do. He has shown Pharaoh, indeed, 7 years will come, right? Plenty of great throughout the land of Egypt. That's the 7 years of cow, 7 years of head, right? What will arise, right? That would be after. That's why in the dream, the 7 years of the sickling cows, the sickling wheat come right after. They rise up right after. The good ones rise up, right? And 7 years of famine after them. And will be forgotten, all the plenty, meaning the famine will utterly destroy everything that you have because you haven't saved it in the land of Egypt, and will deplete, right? See, there's the context. And will deplete the famine, the land. So the famine will deplete and destroy the land, right? That's the devouring part. So not will be known the plenty in the land. There won't be a plenty. There will be nothing of the famine that following. Thus, for severe it will be. Very, right? And was repeated the dream to Pharaoh twice. Because, now we get a reason why twice happened. Because is established the thing by God, and will shortly God bring it to pass. Now, therefore, okay, so he's given the interpretation, but there has to be a plan that occurs. Okay, so here that again, there has to be a plan that occurs. Now, therefore, let's select Pharaoh. So let Pharaoh select a discerning man, meaning a person with discernment and wise. They have to have wisdom, and set him over the land of Egypt. Right. So he's telling him now. Here's how you deal with this. Let's do this, Pharaoh, and let him appoint officers over the land to take a fifth from the land of Egypt in the 7 years of plenty. In other words, save up, store away. In other words, suffering's going to come. Problem's going to come. So why not save up during the years that you have extra, that you have plenty, put away a little bit, right? So that when the years of suffering, you have something to dip into, okay? And let them gather all the food of the year's good, right? Not all, but what? Not all, but a fifth, right here, a fifth, right? Good, that are coming, these, and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh, food in the cities to be preserved, right, to saved. That should be food as a reserve, as a backup during those years of famine. For the land, for 7 years of the famine, right, for the famine years, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that not may perish the land during the famine. Now, why does it say may? Because even though Joseph is giving him instructions saying, hey, here's how we get to this problem, the Pharaoh can still choose not to listen. Free will. That's what that means when you see may, might, maybe, if, any of that. Okay? So was good the advice? So in other words, the advice was good. In Pharaoh's eyes, he realized it was good advice. And in the eyes of all his servants, they also noticed it was good. Pharaoh to his servants, can we find such as this, a man whom the Spirit of God is in? Right? Elohim, plural. And said Pharaoh to Joseph, since has shown God, plural, right? But that refers to the entire Trinity, right? Plural, divine ones, right? You are this. There is no one as discerning and wise as you. So now all of a sudden, because Joseph has wisdom, because Joseph has discernment, Joseph is exalted up. Remember what the Bible says? Those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. So now God is lifting up Joseph, exalting him. You shall be over my house, and according to your word shall be ruled. All my people, only in regards to the throne, will be greater than you. And said Pharaoh to Joseph, see, I have set you all over the land. So Pharaoh raises him up. He's now second only to Pharaoh, second in charge of all of Egypt, and took Pharaoh his signet ring. Now that shouldn't be very important because we've been seeing that over the course of these last chapters we've been reading. Okay, a signet ring is very important, right? It's a ring, a signet, a symbol of authority, right? Off his hand, and he put it on the hand of Joseph as a symbol of authority. So basically, when Joseph walks around now with that ring on, everyone's going to give reverence to him because of that ring. And he clothed him in garments of fine linen, very special clothing. And he put a gold chain around his neck. And he had rid him in a chariot, the second, which he had, and they cried out before him, bow the knee. This would be pay respects, right? Show respect. So he set him over all the land of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh, and said Pharaoh to Joseph, I am the Pharaoh, and apart from you, not may lift man his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And call Pharaoh the name of Joseph, right? Zephnath Paneah. Zephnath Paneah. Zephnath Paneah. Right? So let's look at Paneah. 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 I don't know if that C is pronounced or not, but it's Zephnath Paneah. Okay. Because it looks the C. I know in Hebrew the C is often silent. There are a lot of letters. You know, the truth is, I can see the words. I can see on the screen the description. I can look up the words. I can learn that way. But how to pronounce it, how it sounded, I'm not going to know that. Okay? I can take a wild guess, like here. Ve'it tin. Okay? But whether that's pronounced correctly, I don't know, because the V may be silent. It may be ayitin, right? And he gave him Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, as a wife. So this daughter Asenath, right, was given to Joseph as a wife. She's an Egyptian woman given to Joseph as a wife. So went out Joseph over all the land of Egypt, right? So now we have the next section. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before King Pharaoh of Egypt. And went out Joseph from the presence of Pharaoh, and went through all the land of Egypt, and he brought forth the ground in the 7 years of plenty. So he harvesting, gathering up, right? So he gathered up all the food of 7 years, which were, now this is not all the food, by the way. This is a fifth of the food, because we have to play into context of what he said above, right? Which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities the food of the fields, in every city which surrounded them. He laid up in the midst and gathered Joseph grain like the sand of the sea, much very, until that he stopped counting, for it was not measurable, meaning they had so much that it was pointless to try and count it. And to Joseph were born two sons. So now Joseph has two sons. Okay? And came the years of famine, whom bore. So now the years of famine come, right, to him. Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, O priest, on and called Joseph the name of the firstborn son of Joseph, Manasseh, right? Manasseh, causing to forget. Now this may be in reference to that God has caused Joseph to forget his sufferings of being sold into slavery, but it might also play into the context of forgetting the 7 years before. Okay, for it has made now, but let's see which one it is, because he gives context right here. For it has made me forget God, all my toil and all my house in my father's house. So now we have understanding. Manasseh is the name Manasseh is in reference to forgetting all the troubles that Joseph had to go through. And the name of the second called Ephraim. Okay. Double ash heap. I shall be doubly fruitful. Again, that God has blessed them. Right? So each name has a meaning in reference to Joseph's life. For it has caused me to be fruitful, God, in the land of my affliction. Right? Now, yes, he's second to Pharaoh. But does fruitfulness imply money only? No, obviously not. And ended 7 years of plenty. So now the 7 years of plenty had ended, which were in the land of Egypt. And now begun the 7 years of the famine. So it's just as the dreams described. Right? And to come, as he said, Joseph. And was all the famine in the lands. But in the land of Egypt, there was bread. So when was famished, right, starved, all the land of Egypt, they cried to the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. So they're like, save us, Pharaoh, we want bread, we want food, right? And said Pharaoh to all of Egypt, go to Joseph, whatever he says to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and opened Joseph all the storehouses in it, and sold to the Egyptians, and became severe the famine in the land of Egypt. So all countries came into Egypt to buy, right there, not for free, buy grain unto Joseph, because was severe the famine in the lands. Okay? So now that we're done with the reading of Genesis 41, let me try to break this down for how it might apply to you. Okay? So, as we know, as we see, there's a situation going on, right? The Pharaoh is given a dream. Joseph is here, and he's like, okay, here's what the dream means. Let's make a plan to solve the dream. Make a plan to solve what's going to come from the dream, right? Because he sees what's going to take place. He has a humble heart, and because he has a humble heart, God exalts him to a high place through the hands of the Pharaoh, okay, to be second in command, and he uses what God does to lift him up in the right way. He doesn't use it in the wrong. Okay, he respects what God has done to lift him up, and he uses his position as a way to serve others and be there for others. Okay, so that's what he does. All right, and then he instructs everybody to store as a united team of the country, or I should say the area of Egypt. He instructs everybody, as he said to Pharaoh, right? Store away grain during the years of plenty. Store away little bit by little bit by little bit. How is it as a person that you're supposed to get a lot? Very simple. You little by little by little by little. right? If I want, for example, I don't have a lot of money, but I want, let's say, a new Bible, or maybe I want to give to the poor a bunch of money or something, right? How would I do that? Well, I would save up little by little by little each month until I finally have enough to do that. Okay, that's how I would do it. Just like Joseph here, I would save up, I would store up during the years of plenty while I have that option, and then later on, if maybe something happened in my own life, right, I would have a financial net to lean on if I had trouble. Just like this. This is what this is emphasizing. If you are smart, you store away when you have plenty, so that when you don't have plenty, you have that which to dig into to help sustain yourself. Okay, that's what one of the messages of this is. Okay, if you listen to God, He will help you to prepare before something bad even comes along your path, so that when the bad comes along your path, you can actually be prepared for it. Okay. Now, with that being said, guys, I hope you have a really good day. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go for now, and I will see you guys again on the 17th. Okay.